I forgot to hit record before I started, so the gesture drawing was there. You probably missed about 3 minutes for me to scribble that in. I then go in with a symmetry tool because I want to show some beauty and grace, and I'm bad at getting things really nicely symmetrical. There are parts of the piece that are asymmetrical, so I don't use it very long. When I'm satisfied with the sketch, I'll lock the pixels in that layer and go over and make it a darker color. This piece I did not intend on doing line work for, so it's fully painted. After I get that taken care of, you'll see me blocking in the values. I decided on this one to start with black and white. I did this for a few reasons. Because her head is tilted back and I haven't painted wings in a while, I decided to start black and white so that I could see the values and better define the form before I add color. It also gives me an opportunity that if I want to change something, it's a little bit easier in that stage than when it's full color. So today I would like to talk about some of the best and worst jobs that I've ever had. I've been talking with my therapist lately, and for the first time in the past few years, I finally feel stable enough to really start discussing long-term goals. So we decided on the option of exploring recreational therapy, which would give me the ability to do art, music, dance, physical activity with various people to help in recovery, whether at a hospital or a skilled nursing facility or behavioral health. So with that in mind, I decided let's talk about some of the best and worst jobs I've had. Coming in at one of the better jobs, I really enjoyed working at Russell Stover. They're headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri, which is where I was at that time. You can't go wrong in a chocolate store, unless you don't like sweets or chocolate. But I do. I shouldn't, but I do. And people would ask if I ever got tired of eating the chocolate in the store, and the answer is no. I never got tired. I did get to the point where I wasn't eating so much I made myself sick. I definitely scaled back my chocolate consumption. But most people coming into that store were already pretty happy. We ended up across from a hotel, so a lot of people who were visiting the area would come in. The store also carried bloopers, which come from the factory. For some reason, they aren't perfect. They don't look good. Some chocolate didn't cover all of the shape, or they're deformed. Perfectly edible, just not as pretty. And you can get bloopers for darn cheap. And they all taste the same. They're delicious no matter how they look. I also had a really good manager. I enjoyed her. She was very nice and understanding. Generally, when I do a retail job, everyone's like, oh, wow, you're so great at customer service. The customers love you. So when I was at Russell Stover, there's a rule that if your drawer is more than $5 off in either direction, it's like automatic termination. And they were very much sticklers on counting the drawer in the morning. You only use your register, and then you count it if someone else is going to use it. So they had ways of tracking if it was more than $5 off. There were a few times that I would punch in like the wrong number, and I gave the appropriate amount of change, but it made my drawer technically off, to which my manager helped me cover that up. Don't tell corporate. Bonus fun fact, I had a coworker who I worked with at the Gap. Her name was Candy. Every single day, someone would say, oh, your name is Candy and you work in a candy store. I made her a fake name tag once, just for that. Why I left? So the ice cream is very hard because you have these big buckets, they're kept in the freezer. And as you're scooping ice cream, you have to pull the scoop towards you, and the muscle tendon around my elbow started to hurt, and so I would just get arm weakness. I couldn't scoop the ice cream. And then I had to do like workman's comp, and they're like, well, you can't scoop any ice cream for so long. And because corporate is in Kansas City, they would visit our store very frequently. and ask my manager, why do you have someone who can't scoop ice cream? I thought that was kind of lame of corporate. Like, I get you plenty of rewards. I'm nice to customers. But okay, I can't scoop ice cream. I also decided while I was at Russell Stover that I wanted to go into social work. I was working full-time. I found a part-time job that allowed me to go to school, which I then left for a social work job. But yeah, overall, Russell Stover was a really fun place to work. Coming in at one of my least favorite jobs, good old McDonald's. Good old McDonald's. Man, everyone, the managers, the other people, the customers, they just treat you like you're an idiot. So when people say, it's an entry-level job, you don't need any skill, well, you kind of do. You have to deal with people that you may or may not like. You have to deal with customers constantly being hangry. You have to clean up after people's kids who just throw French fries everywhere. Overall, it was an awful experience. Why I quit? So my manager grabs me by the arm, which I later found out that you can't do this. If your manager ever grabs you physically, that's not allowed. But this was my first real job. I had no idea. She grabs me by the arm and she pulls me aside and she says, "You keep messing up breakfast orders. You're costing us money." I've never had anyone in authority speak to me like that. So I go to the bathroom and I cry. And I come back and I say, "I quit." She asks me why. "Because you're a meanie." I didn't feel like it was an appropriate time to tell her she was a bitch, nor did I have the balls at that point. So I went home. I also had, at one point, it was in February and it was really cold outside, and someone ordered a McChicken and a cup of water. So I hand them the cup of water and they splash it right in my face. While all my managers are out back smoking because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't miss that job. I don't regret leaving. Another job that I really enjoyed was working at the Nilsson Atkins, which is the art museum up in Kansas City. It's the one with the giant shuttlecocks in the yard. I love that job. It was so much fun. The downside was I had to be on my feet all day, and the break room is pretty far away from the general building. And it kind of hurt standing all day, not really walking around. I got to hang out with art all day long. I got to read all the descriptions. I got to know where the secret doors are. All sorts of fun, cool, interesting things that I got to experience just because I work there. As a bonus, I got to wear the cool orange tie and a blazer. So probably my favorite uniform of any job I've ever had. I did eventually leave it. It was the job between Russell Stover's and my first social work job. It's still one of my favorites. Also, everyone I worked with was super nice. You don't run into that very often, but all of my coworkers were absolutely wonderful. On to a job that I still call my fake job. So, I worked for the KC Standard, which is part of Smart Circle. And there's a documentary on Smart Circle that I highly recommend if you ever end up in a company that is like a subgroup of the Smart Circle. The first red flag was that I showed up 15 minutes late to my first interview, and I still got the second interview and then the third interview. That should have been my first red flag. It was supposed to be like a marketing manager job, but what really happens is you're the guy in Walmart trying to sell Dish Network. Except I was the girl in Sam's Club trying to sell Vivint home security. And I heard they were in trouble. I think the Illuminati does a video on that. So in the morning, we would have to go to the corporate office place, And we would get in these groups and they would play obnoxiously loud music to get us all hyped up and excited. And it was kind of culty and it was kind of weird. And I have a hard time with loud music paying attention to someone talking. So it was very sensory overload for me. Then after these meetings, which we had to dress full business professionals, suit coats were required. Then to go out into, your designated store, but you weren't supposed to wear your suit coat. You had to wear like the t-shirt of the company or whatever. And they paid something dismal like $10 if you don't get commission. I remember going through everything, trying to do everything right, and I have trouble making eye contact. I think it's the BPD, the borderline, because if I look someone in the eye, I think they're going to know I'm a shit person. But anywho, I have trouble making eye contact. And they constantly dog me. You need to be looking people in the eye. You need to be looking at people in the eye. That's why you're not making sales. Maybe I'm not making sales because no one wants a home security system from Sam's Club. And we weren't affiliated with Sam's. That's totally different. Yeah, so I would have little tasks like count how many people have blue eyes, count how many people have green eyes. It was very tiring, and I do not regret quitting that job. I regret taking it, but I don't regret quitting it. It was very cult-like and not fun. Not as fun as they wanted it to be. And another one of my favorite jobs was working at Michael's. People tell me, oh, I couldn't work at Michael's. I would spend my entire paycheck. And for a little bit, I did kind of spend a lot because I wanted all the stuff. I don't do a lot of home decor, so I never had issue with that. It was the art supplies. I love art supplies. Obviously, I'm an artist. I got into paper crafting. I got into Happy Planner. I don't think I'm very good at crafting like scrapbook, Happy Planner type stuff. But I have a whole plethora of stickers. I do enjoy stickers. If I can make something look cute, all the better. I knew that store pretty darn well, inside and out. There was actually a point I knew 4 different stores because I worked at Overland Park North, which became Lenexa, so that's 2 stores. And then I got loaned out to Lee's Summit on occasion to help in their framing department, which is where I worked. And then I got transferred to Zona Rosa, which I eventually quit because I never was given manager duties or pay raise. So I knew what aisle things were on, I just didn't know where that aisle was all the time in all those stores. I remember at some point someone asked over the walkie, do we have kneaded erasers? And what is a kneaded eraser? And me being a smartass responded something like, well, it's more than being a wanted eraser. It's a kneaded eraser. And then I went and corrected, you actually have to knead it like bread. It will be in the fine art section next to the pencils. Oh, by the way, if you ever want to find hot glue guns, they always live in floral accessories. I don't know why. That's where hot glue guns live, in every store. At one point, I had a gentleman come in a coat, which wasn't unusual. It was like January. And it looked like kind of a pudgy coat. But I found out it wasn't pudgy because he was pudgy. This little naked cat pops its head out. He has hairless cats, and we were next to a PetSmart. So he was inquiring about one of the old carts we had out back, if he could have it to haul kitty litter around. Weird things happen in retail. I suppose in food service too, but definitely retail. There are some weird events. I worked in the framing department in Michael's for a time, and a gentleman brought in a piece, and all I had to do was back it and put the back wire on. So I did. And then a few days later, I come to work again, and there's that piece sitting unwrapped. It turned out I had drilled through the frame which had been my fear for a very long time. And so I had to fix that. We had to order a new frame for him. We put everything in, and he says, I'm not really sure I like the color of the mat. And we're like, well, we have 100% satisfaction guarantee. So, I go with him and I help him pick out a mat that's not purple, because that's K-State colors, can't have that. And he tells me, you're really good at this. I want you to work on my frame. And I think I laughed and I said, oh, that's very flattering. I was the one who drilled through on the first time. I enjoyed working the framing counter because I got to see so much interesting and unique art and a wide variety of it. Anywho, I think we're wrapping this up as I try to find a place to put my signature and make it visible but not in the way. Isn't that the problem with all signatures? And here's the finished piece. Anyway, if you made it this far, hi, hello, welcome to my channel. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a like, consider leaving a comment. Let me know your favorite or least favorite job.